Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 16, episode 25. We are live with the two of the co-founders of the Portal project, and this episode is sponsored by hodling.ch, Sideshift.ai, Citrea, Bitcoin.com, News, Layer 2 Labs, and NoOnes.com. It's really good to have you guys once again. I think it's the third interview that I do about Portal, and the project has
Nice.
grown over the last, 5 years since I met you. And you've been
Oh yeah.
doing a lot of stuff with swaps, and it's really exciting that you're bringing something trustless into an industry that seems to bring back trusted setups.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. I'm Chandra, co-founder, CEO, chairman of Portal, and I'm glad to be here with my friend and co-founder, George.
Hey
Yes,
there.
that's important for the people on Spotify. That was Chandra Duggirala, and the other voice is George Burke, the builder.
Yeah, for the people who don't have their video on, I'm playing around with filters on Google Meet, and so I found this construction hat. It was either that or the wizard beard, but I already have the beard.
You're already a wizard, now you're building wizard. So let's talk about Portal. What has been happening lately? Last time you were on the show, I saw this demo in which you were able to swap trustlessly between Lightning Network on Bitcoin, and I think it was the Raiden network on Ethereum.
Yep. So I'll give you a brief update. So we started with a mission to actually create what we call trust minimized exchange. Because when we started, as you know, the word decentralized exchange didn't exist. And our big problem with terminology is that, as someone very smart said, if you start with absurd definitions, you're going to reason yourself into complete nonsense. And so we don't really care about decentralization. We actually care about trust minimization and cross-chain operations. So we called it TMEX, unfortunately, TMEX. That didn't take off. DEX took off. So we don't care. We go with the flow. But our core mission remains trust minimized cross-chain operations, which means other than trusting the security properties of the blockchains that you are swapping or doing complex contracts across, you don't have to trust any other primitives extraneously. So no multisigs, no vaults, no bridges, no wrap derivatives, none of those shenanigans which claim to be trustless. I mean, we all know that this industry is full of scammers who try to hide their security vulnerabilities and their own personal insecurities under a lot of computer science jargon. And we took the opposite route. We said, look, we want to go for simple. And so the first iteration of that was, like you said, in our view, there's a lot of projects that claim to be layer twos. In our view, true layer twos are off-chain settlement mechanisms like Lightning, Raiden, state channels, payment channels, Mercury layer, that sort of an approach. Everything else is a sidechain LARPing as an L2, right? Bitcoiners will understand this. Altcoiners will frown, but we really don't care. So how do you do this? The first iteration attempt at this was actually trying to fix Raiden, and then we figured out that there's no point in trying to resuscitate a dead project because everybody left, and we actually were left with holding the bag of trying to fix all of the problems with Raiden and removing the token from that and all of that stuff. So we said, you know what? Screw this. Not screw Raiden, but screw that approach. Let's get back to what's real. And so we built the second iteration, which was actually peer-to-peer without an order book. Had a lot of problems. It worked, but the problem was there was almost infinite amount of user friction for you to be able to find the counterparty, know their public key hash, be able to do the hash time lock, swap, and then you get back to these same problems as atomic swaps on L1 always had, which is one, the lockup griefing problem, the free option problem, the same thing. So we eventually came up with this brand new architecture, which we call Bitscaler, which is compatible with Lightning. It is not Lightning. It is actually a solution to several of the problems that Lightning had, which is you can't do an AMM-based multi-chain AMM-based DEX that actually reaches parity with the best centralized user experience, which is what people are used to and they want. Lightning doesn't allow us to do that because two-party multi-sig, and then the parent-child thing, and then you can't have multiple counterparties, and you can't know all of their public key hashes in advance and do these hash time contracts on L1. Everything is an on-chain transaction. So a lot of research went into developing Bitscaler, but huge credit to where credit is due. Christian Decker and Roger Waterhofer, they came up with this concept of a channel factory. So we built and modified the channel factory to fit the AMM design on multiple chains. And so what do you get with that? You get multi-party, one transaction can create multi-party off-chain channels. Essentially, and then you can slice and dice these channels off-chain, and the on-chain footprint is 96% less than even Lightning. That allows for us to actually have a trustless way to hold the liquidity provider funds as well as the traders to trade against them using L2 atomic swaps, just like what Lightning does. When you do payment forwarding on Lightning, what you're essentially doing is you're doing L2 atomic swaps through the route from the recipient, from the sender to the recipient. And as soon as the recipient gets the right amount of the secret is revealed, you just clear out your channel. You don't need to have all of that junk stored. You just keep the state of your channels in your RAM or wherever you store your state.
And the technology is difficult, right? But we have to go into why it's even been created in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Why atomic swaps?
That's great. That's a great point. So the goal is to create the absolute best exchange in the world. And why? First, it is trust minimized. We don't use the word trustless because there's nothing trustless, right? Including Bitcoin. Trust minimized. Number two, it has to have the absolute best user experience, because without that, all of your techno wizardry is useless. Everything goes in reverse order from the user experience, user benefits, all the way back into the backend tech stack, right? That's the way I look at products. That's the way I've been trained to look at products. That's the way every successful company works in Silicon Valley. Number three, and this is what we'll get into, we've changed a lot, the AI element of this, which is something that most people don't associate Portal with. When we actually acquired RAFA, and we said this is the future of financial markets, bringing efficiency to whether it's TradFi or DeFi, most people, including our investors, said like, well, you guys were doing a DEX, like what the fuck is this? I'm sorry for the language, this AI thing. 3 months after that, ChatGPT 3 comes out, and now everybody is trying to create like first grade level. Oh, we have an AI bot that can actually do this, which is a thin wrapper around ChatGPT. To give you a little bit of a background on RAFA, RAFA was built by a longtime acquaintance and friend and a team that we highly respect and love that came out of NVIDIA. They spent, I mean, the head of our AI, Abhinav, who was at NVIDIA for 9 years as a senior systems architect, big data and machine learning, worked on CUDA. So there are very few people in the world who know how to do these things with the right tools, with having mathematical accuracy, with having almost no hallucinations, and so on and so forth, and build it and integrate it and build the agentic software that becomes your personal hedge fund in your pocket, right in the exchange where you actually hold your tokens non-custodially and trade non-custodially, right? It all makes sense now. It didn't make sense to anyone 2 years ago. That's always the way it works. So we took a large directional bet and bet the future of the company on that. And as you will see, everybody, the latest report from Consensus is that all the TradFi and DeFi companies now want to have AI bots, but they don't know how to build them. So yeah, those are the big 10,000-foot view changes on what happened with Portal over the last couple of years since we last spoke. And I'll stop there, and I'll be happy to take questions about or whatever direction you want to take this conversation.
Yeah, you mentioned something about building a better Lightning network. I'm curious how that works.
We're not trying to build a better Lightning network. We're trying to solve a specific. Lightning was built for micropayments, right? That's a huge need, hopefully in the near future or in the far future. Who knows? Once Bitcoin becomes the currency, money, and we have strict definitions for all terms. What is money? Money is a generally used medium of exchange. Bitcoin is not money yet. We're all betting that it'll become money at some point. We call it proto money or pre-money, right? And some people argue that no, anything that is used in medium of exchange is money. By that stupid logic, cans of expired sardines in prisons and cigarettes can also be considered money. That's a stupid definition. That's like saying I play basketball in my backyard, and therefore, when people ask me what I do, I'm a basketball player. That basically entirely destroys the value of the definition in the first place. So we don't call Bitcoin money. Once Bitcoin becomes money, Lightning Network will be the greatest thing in the world. We have a lot of respect for the team there. I think they're 20 years ahead of anybody else. We focus on here now, maybe like 5 to 10 years from now. So what is the biggest need for the world right now? It's to have trust minimized exchange. How do we know? Where is the volume? What are the users actually wanting? Where is proven demand? The proven demand is for cross-chain exchange. And so Lightning doesn't fit that mold. It was built for a different purpose. We tried it. But what we've built, the Channel Factory, is not a better Lightning. It's an alternative interpretation of off-chain scaling mechanisms for Bitcoin. And when the first paper came out, I think in 2018, when Christian Decker was still at ETH Zurich, people called it the Holy Grail of Bitcoin. Then he went to Blockstream, and we were fortunate enough to be able to collaborate with him, in building BitScaler. And we have some ex-Blockstream people, as you know. Eric was here, Johnny Dilly was with us, and lots of great Bitcoin engineers. And it is not trying to compete with Lightning. Lightning is trying to do one specific thing. And we really are not interested in that use case now. Our use case is the exchange. So we built something that is compatible with Lightning, so you can actually move your liquidity seamlessly across from Lightning and do your trades and do your options and perpetuals and all that stuff and get right back into your wallet. And nowhere along this chain or this life cycle of your user activity will you have custodial risk. So that's our differentiator, along with the AI agent investment copilot built right into the deck. So the huge differentiator is it scales well beyond what Lightning can do. It is compatible with Lightning, and you'll have absolutely no custodial risk while you have your coins in the wallet, while you're trading, after you trade. Nowhere along the life cycle will you have custody risk. So yeah, not a better, I wouldn't characterize what we built as a better version or competitor to Lightning. It is compatible with Lightning. It solves a different use case, but it uses similar off-chain settlement mechanisms as Lightning. As you know, there are many different interpretations of Lightning, C Lightning, et cetera, et cetera. Channel Factory is not that. Channel Factory is a different off-chain settlement mechanism.
I was going to ask you about that because I guess the listeners are already familiar with how Lightning works. But BitScaler sounds with all these channel factories, and you said it solves some inefficiencies of the Lightning Network design. It sounds
I mean,
like
Lightning is unfortunately only peer-to-peer. You can only have channels between two peers, and so you have to open up and close a channel every time you want to change those peers. But instead, with Bitscaler, you have the ability to, let's say, have 5,000 different peers in the same channel, and that means just one anchor transaction that opens that channel for 5,000 people, 10,000 people. We don't know how far it can scale.
And
I'd
all
love
of
to. I'd
the,
love to find out what that top number is.
right. And all of the peer-to-peer channels are formed off chain, right? And closed off chain. And the settlement happens on chain with one transaction. So the fees are spread across all of the users in that N of N multi-sig. So that's the big difference. And I highly recommend, I can post a link to that original paper and the Bitscaler paper. They're both on our publications, portal2bitcoin.com/publications, I believe, or docs, publications. The original Channel Factory paper, and then there was a follow-up. Nobody actually dared to implement it because I mean, altcoiners don't really care about what's happening in Bitcoin. We don't care about what's happening in the altcoin land. And so we have this nice little space to ourselves where we bring the product sensibility, distribution mindset, and also understand Bitcoin at its deepest level and the ethos and the values of Bitcoin and what Bitcoiners want. So that's the niche we carved for ourselves, and turns out that's pretty big and pretty huge and pretty important.
yeah.
When you take a look at, go ahead, Flash.
No, you go ahead.
When you take a look at the implementation of what Bitscaler is meant to do, at least for Portal's application, we built, the first cross-chain AMM that is as trustless as can be. And when you look at how AMMs work, and maybe we can get a little technical, but the way
AMM
AMMs
meaning
work,
automatic market maker.
automated market maker. That's right. So anytime you go on most of these swapping services, you'll see that there are liquidity providers, and there can be hundreds of liquidity providers providing coins that are typically two-sided coins. They can be Tether and Bitcoin, or USDC and Ethereum, and they'll put that into a pool locked up. Because you need both of those coins for people to be able to trade as the counterparty against that pool. And so, because you can have either one liquidity provider or hundreds, maybe even thousands, this is where you want to have channel factories really shine. Because if you're going to have thousands of peers with tokens that are locked non-custodially, channel factories is, as far as we can tell, on the Bitcoin side and other UTXO type transaction networks, that's the only way to do it.
Right. It sounds like you can basically serve hundreds, if not thousands, of users in one on-chain transaction. Is that correct?
100%. Yes. We hope many thousands of users, many thousands, hundreds of thousands of users, because there's not just one liquidity pool. If you look at the DEXs, right, there's several liquidity pools. They're continuously forming, and then they settle and they're done. I have to give credit where credit is due. A lot of the AMM research was done by the Uniswap folks and Paradigm guys, who we actually disagree with on several things, and Robinson, but this
Well, even
thing,
before then, don't forget Bancor.
oh,
That was really where that
you won't get
was.
me started on all of the scams that exist in this industry. This podcast will never end. So let's forget about Bangor. Yeah.
Okay. I was going to mention that one of the show sponsors is SideShift, and they are the swapping service, which, for example, if someone offers to pay you in stablecoins, you can just send them a Bitcoin address from SideShift, which means that SideShift does the swap and sends the money to your Bitcoin wallet. It's a pretty cool use case. But SideShift is centralized, meaning that they're the ones buying the liquidity. they run as a company to balance whatever they need for various coins, and they might also filter some transactions if I don't know if it
But
comes from North Korea
we're
or
happy to
something.
have people use SideShift, and
That's actually a great point that you bring up, because look, there's three ways of doing cross-chain transactions, right? From 2010 to 2019, the only way to do them was actually to use an off-chain custodian of your coins, which is a centralized exchange. It's 3 steps, right? You send your coins to a SEX. George sends his coins to the SEX. You guys are basically adjusting entries in their database when you're trading. And when you want to withdraw your coins, they batch up transactions and send what is due to you, hopefully. The third step is where it fails, because exchanges fail every day. We all know, from Mt. Gox to FTX and the recent multi-sig hacks to everything. Off-chain custody has proven to be a terrible disaster and lost tens of billions of dollars of users' money over the years. Okay. And in 2019, people invented this stupid, almost a con job where they claim it is trustless while it is decentralized, which means instead of one centralized exchange entity holding your coins, now you have like these 7 different people in a multi-sig validators that are holding custody of your coins. And therefore, it's somehow more secure. Just look at Thorchain, which got hacked 3 times in a month and recently almost was bankrupt, and they were trying to do an on-chain DAO bankruptcy like Chapter 11 or some crazy nonsense like that. So that's one way of doing things, right? On-chain custody, off-chain custody, they've both failed. I don't have to go into all of the bridge hacks and bridge failures from wormhole to Ronin, etc. The most clean way of doing things is atomic swaps. But before we get there, what you mentioned, SideShift, is, to me, sounds like Shapeshift and Changelly, which existed for a long time, which is like, okay, I send my money to Eric Voorhees. I trust his name, I trust his reputation, and I hope that he sends me the appropriate amount of Bitcoin we agreed on, and it worked. He's a good guy. But we actually take it literally that trusted third parties are security holes, intentionally or unintentionally. So the cleanest, purest way to do this is atomic swaps, which again, like all innovations, major innovations in crypto, go back to Bitcoiners and Bitcoin talk forums. So atomic swaps were invented by Tier Nolan, a pseudonym for some guy who we are eternally thankful to. Unfortunately, L1 atomic swaps don't work because they take too much time. They're too expensive. And then there's all these problems about finding your counterparty, knowing them, their public key hash in advance, and doing the hash time lock contracts, and doing the, exchange, Diffie-Hellman, whatever. It's a pain in the ass. It's a mess. That's why nobody adopted it. A lot of people tried. We tried too. It just doesn't work and bring the user experience to the level that you actually need to have a product that will have real world adoption instead of some bullshit that you make up to convince people to dump your tokens on. So that's why it took like 5 years of R&D. And then there's this other thing that I will mention in passing. There's these cross-chain message passing protocols, right? Like, it's the worst of all approaches. It guarantees nothing. Bitcoin doesn't give a shit about the state of Ethereum network. Ethereum doesn't care about the state of Bitcoin network. And so you're having these messenger pigeons passing through these bunch of validators, which are like 5 DVP and whatever, like layer 0 claims. And then somehow that is supposed to be more secure than just trusting a centralized exchange or a bridge, where they're at least honest that they have like, hey, trust us, we are Jump, we back it with our money. Okay, so it's the worst approach of all. Bridges are right about that. Sexes I actually have a lot more respect for, at least the good ones, because they take their OPSEC seriously. Of course, you can never secure them because they're always trusted third parties and magnets for hackers and stuff like that, with what happened with the Lazarus group recently. So, with what we've built, you don't need to trust us. You shouldn't trust us. You should actually verify everything.
Well, I was gonna crack a joke about Bitcoiners not verifying too much lately, but I guess it will not age well.
That's a great point, and I have my bones to pick with that as well. Like, look, there are true Bitcoiners like, Eric Waskill and like maybe Zuko and some other folks who and people at Blockstream who literally take, some folks at Blockstream who literally take the ethos and take it to the max, right? Like they never compromise on the principles of true self-custody, stateless money, those things. And there are all of these hangers on, like fleas on a beast, that actually come on and they pump everything that they can pump and say like, hey, Michael Saylor is buying all of the Bitcoin, and so buy MicroStrategy's common stocks. Like, do you actually know how to evaluate the cap structure of a company? And do you know what rights the common stockholders have? They have no idea. These are just people who picked up a $100 note on the street and they got rich. Good for them. And the hardest problem for them is they confuse their luck for skill. And now they're all about like ETFs. They're all about MicroStrategies and the Bitcoin accumulation strategies and all of this nonsense. Where does self-custody figure into all of that?
Well, I'm pretty sure that they're gonna show you a price chart and say, "Oh, I'm making so much money," and you're just talking.
Yeah, we don't give a shit about that. I mean, there's a lot of rich people I know. I mean, we respect people based on what they do, not based on where they stand for part of their day. There's a lot of scammers who can show you price charts or their bank accounts. There's probably millions of them, even in TradFi. We just ignore the noise. We don't care.
In principle, I agree with you, but once you dig deep into the community, you're gonna be in for a disillusionment and realize that some of the values that were presented maybe 10 years ago don't apply as much or not to the same extent. I mean, Lightning Network, for all the great research that it did, it made some people complacent with custody. Because the most popular use cases like zapping on Nostr or whatever rely on custodial services. And
we don't use Nostr.
Well, I appreciate your toxic approach. I think it's very much in line with...
It's not toxic. I mean, we give it to you straight. I don't hate him. I hate on people. We don't really, I'm telling you, we don't hate people. We just don't care. Meaning we don't pay attention to them. We ignore them.
So what do you think? Let me ask you about some of my sponsors. What do you think about BIP300 Drivechains?
I don't know about them, frankly.
So conceptually, if you have a sidechain that's secured by miners and you need the miners to vote on which sidechain is going to get deployed and what's going to happen with the funds, do you think that's good enough to bring Ethereum and some other use cases?
Paul Stork's Drivechain approach.
That's what it is.
Yeah. So okay. Well, I mean, I've done my digging into Drivechains. I like Paul. I think it has merit. The proof is in the pudding. Let's see adoption. Let's see a lot of user activity. Lots of user transactions. Let's see them bring a lot of miner revenue, and then we'll see. I mean, you don't need my opinion on that. The opinion, it comes from the market. That's the truth.
Right, but in order to let the market decide, you need to pass some sort of soft fork, and you need consensus for that.
Yeah, good luck to them.
Does Portal require any soft forks to work?
Absolutely not. Not even a single opcode change.
But is there any benefit to opcode changes that can help Portal products become better?
Look, this is a topic that can go on for like 30 days if you really want to get into like the, I mean, Jesus Christ, when I open my Bitcoin dev mailing list emails, that's like a huge time sink for me. And they're all great arguments and people have good faith arguments on there. So one soft fork, Jameson Lopp actually wrote a very comprehensive and thoughtful piece about why we need to actually do quantum secure soft fork for basically op hash signatures. That I think has merit. We don't need opcat. We don't need any of this other shit. In my view, obviously I could be wrong, but the reason for the way he articulated it actually resonates with me very well is that I don't actually think, I'm not a quantum physicist, okay, disclaimer. But the fact that the proof of quantum computing comes up every 3-4 years, and Google claims quantum supremacy, and then every PR agency runs with it because it's a big piece of news and it's a threat to everybody, and obviously everybody wants eyeballs. You got to understand the incentives of the people behind this machine, okay? There's a project manager or a product manager at Google who's in charge of making sure that quantum computing actually works and they can deliver results. His job is at risk, so they produce something, they push it out through their PR channels. It's the greatest marketing machine the world has ever seen, obviously. Couple of months from then, someone from Stanford, a poor academic, publishes a paper saying, we replicated the exact same performance with just classical computers. All you need is a little bit bigger cluster. But that doesn't get the PR. That happened a couple of times in the past. Okay, so this whole thing about quantum supremacy, we don't believe. However, even in the unlikely scenario, right? These are true unknown, unique, uncertain, or UUU scenarios where someone actually cracks the code. Maybe it's D-Wave, maybe it's someone else, maybe it's Rigetti, who knows? IonQ, who knows? And they actually produce this that can break the public key cryptography, right? ECDSA-based signature, Schnorrs, etc. We don't know when that's going to happen or if it's going to happen, but that threat is non-zero, right? The probability of that happening is non-zero, and the timeline of that happening, we don't know. So how do you proof against that? It's very simple. Just make sure that, in our wallet, we actually have that already, in our type of signature thing. It's like whenever op hash signatures is implemented, then whatever quantum secure signature scheme you do, because hash functions are quantum secure, so it's a double layer of security. We're ready for it. That's all I can say about that topic. That's the only thing I actually think is meaningful. All the other stuff, the layer 2, the sidechains LARPing as layer 2 guys are pushing, I don't think we need it. Bitcoin should be ossified.
So what do you think about this invention that came from Ethereum land, which is called the ZK rollup? And there are a bunch of them coming to Bitcoin. And what they're going to do is to inscribe pieces of data containing zero knowledge proofs, which they will use under layer 2s to operate.
Yeah, we ignore a lot of noise along with that, ZK rollups, all that stuff. If you bring to me a fully homomorphic and encrypted system and show that it is actually efficient, economically efficient, and has a use case and has adoption, then I'll pay attention. No, you're not going to get any comments from me. We ignore the noise. That's just another one of these. ZK is one of these fancy terms people use to bamboozle people into buying their tokens. We don't care.
Really? So you disagree that ZK rollups can help scale Bitcoin or bring Ethereum type of operations that currently we don't have?
Yeah. Do you want Bitcoin to become Ethereum, Vlad?
Well, I think it's useful to onboard some of the Ethereum users and have some of the use cases. Like, I'm not against more users.
Yeah, neither are we. I mean, we built okay. Let me ask you this: where are the most users and where is the most usage in crypto generally?
I think right now, whatever is USDT, whatever network is sending that has the most users.
USDT,
okay.
so that's Tron.
That as
Is that Tron in Latin America?
And Solana and whatever. They're the ones that process most transactions.
That's right. So the biggest use case, just based on the biggest businesses with the biggest revenues, which are proxies for each other, right? If you follow the chain of logic, is exchange. Whether you're trading USDT on Solana against Bitcoin or Ethereum or some other altcoin, exchange is a proven use case with proven demand. No disagreement for me there. How do you bring all of that to Bitcoin? Bitcoin block space, we want to become or transform Bitcoin block space into the settlement layer for millions of markets. So we're absolutely for bringing a ton of more users to Bitcoin and expanding the use cases. but we don't want to corrupt the system. Bitcoin was built with the ethos of nuclear grade security, right? All of the design trade-offs and decisions that have been made in taking Bitcoin to where it is today are based on that one principle of reasoning and arguing and being disagreeable and actually getting to the truth of like that trade-off of not compromising those values. So when you say, do you not want Bitcoin to become Ethereum? Do you want Bitcoin to become Ethereum?
Well,
We just
you can't argue against 128,000 Bitcoin that's wrapped on Ethereum right now as
We don't need
WBTC.
it. That's why we're building Portal to Bitcoin. You don't need wrapped derivatives, like I said at the beginning. We don't need wrapping. We don't need multi-sigs. We don't need any of that stuff. And you can do all the stuff that you're doing on Ethereum natively with native assets. You don't need wrapped derivatives.
Well, my point is that there is demand for this sort of use case, and it's much higher than Lightning and Liquid and everything else combined. And it's better to bring these users to a point where they pay transaction fees to the Bitcoin miners.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. But you don't need ZK rollups for that. That was your original question.
Right, so how is Portal going to pay the miners?
The one flaw in Bitcoin design is the fungibility of block space, right? Like, so one of the things that we have to appreciate is that Solana, the miners can discriminate against certain kinds of transactions and certain contracts and say, you're getting a lot more value from this, and therefore we're going to charge you higher fees. That change I would actually be in favor of, because when we are talking about Bitcoin block space becoming the settlement layer for millions of markets, and every, the fee per byte is the same, no matter how much value is actually captured in the security of Bitcoin, the miners will never be able to capture that revenue. Make sense?
Yeah, sorry, I muted my microphone.
So that design change, I think, in some way, shape, or form will happen eventually through either a soft fork or a consensus change. And so miners, this is just markets working. This is value-based pricing. This is how everything works. So when people adopt all of these things and use Bitcoin as a settlement layer for all of these different markets, whether it's DeFi, whether it's NFTs, meme coins, real world assets, in-game assets, whatever it is, fees will be raised by miners eventually because of the deflation in the block subsidy. It has to. We actually want that to happen at an accelerated pace. So miners get more revenue, which attracts more miners, which produces more hash power, which is actually what secures Bitcoin network against repeated 51% attacks. So that's the flywheel we want to spin up, and that's why we're doing this. So I'm not against bringing up. See, we called our project Portal to Bitcoin and not Portal away from Bitcoin for that specific reason. We want to bring all of these altcoin users, Ethereum, blah, 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 to Bitcoin. But we never said, I heard about Bitcoin yesterday, I'm here to change it. Okay? We're not there for that.
You have a question from the audience. There's Adam Borko who says, how does Portal solve the free option problem with HTLCs?
Yeah, great question. So when I say L2 atomic swaps that actually happen almost instantaneously, Lightning doesn't have that problem because it's just one asset, right?
Why don't you describe the free option problem?
Okay, well,
yeah,
I assume the audience knows. Vlad, what do you say?
Well, it's useful to describe it just to
right,
make sure that we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, so in L1 HTLC tier null and atomic swap, the free option problem is you and I met and we agreed upon an exchange rate between your Bitcoin and my Ethereum. And so now I create a secret. I send you the hash of the secret along with my public key hash. And then you lock it up in an HTLC on Bitcoin with a time lock. And then I do the same thing with my Ethereum, right? On this. And so what happens is, because of the difference in time locks, when you claim, or when I claim, because I created the secret, when I claim your Bitcoin, I have to reveal the secret, the hash of which is locking the encumbrance on the Bitcoin blockchain. And then you have a certain amount of time between that, when that happens, to take that secret and claim my Ethereum. That's the basic tier-Nolan atomic swap, very basic level. In that, the first step, after you made me lock up my Bitcoin, right, you could just disappear and say, oh, you now have a period of illiquidity and you never hear from me again. That's called lockup griefing. The free option problem is, after I locked up my Bitcoin, the guy who has to reveal the secret, if the price of Ethereum moves in the opposite direction of when I made my trade, okay, I don't have to reveal the secret and take your Bitcoin, right? If Ethereum is appreciating against Bitcoin, I don't have to reveal the secret. So I made you lock up your coins. You have any liquidity. I have the option of taking your Bitcoin and giving you my Ethereum or not, and I haven't paid for it in any way, shape, or form. That's the free option, right? Options have a price. The reason why is there's uncertainty. There's, lots of things go into option pricing, and I'm not going to go into that. But the way we solve it is, because these are instantaneous L2 atomic swaps, when you compress the option time period to milliseconds, okay, the premium collapses to zero. Does that make sense?
Right.
If it is a 1-year option, there's all sorts of things that go into it, the theta decay, et cetera, that go into pricing that option. When the option expires in milliseconds, not like just go to ODTs, okay? At markets close at what? 4 p.m. Eastern time? Look at the option prices for ODTs 1 minute before the end of the market and see how they rapidly collapse towards zero, and then they become zero. So when your settlement time, just like Lightning, is near instantaneous, you can't price that option. The premium for that option collapses to zero. And that's how we solve the free option problem. And that's why we got away from the original iteration. Was we were actually able to calculate with some range the premium for that option, and that the price of that option was actually included in the original HTLC. Whoever gets the free option actually pays the fees, and that gets included in the HTLC. But that was peer-to-peer. Like I said, it didn't work for the user experience purposes, so we had to move to this system, and it solves the problem.
There is a follow-up question from the same person, Adam Borko. He says, how can you compress them to milliseconds? Even on Lightning, the HTLC timeouts are pretty high because they need to be enforceable on-chain.
Yeah. But the state changes and the atomic swaps are not limited by on-chain transaction time, okay? They're actually limited by network bandwidth and throughput, which means latency. We're not limited by on-chain settlement. So L2 atomic swaps. If you look at Lightning, atomic swaps in Lightning for payment forwarding, they never touch the blockchain. So they don't care about the block settlement time on Bitcoin.
Okay. Is there any way to run a demo of the product?
Not right now, because the testnet v2 node will be live by Wednesday next week. We can show you the videos of internal testing that we're doing, but there's a lot of node optimizations that we have to do, which are being done right now. I mean, look, there's like thousands of videos on our Twitter feed of doing Bitcoin to Ethereum swaps. Right now, we're working on Solana. Yeah, I don't need to prove that the product works. You have enough proof on our Twitter timeline, and like hundreds of thousands of users have used it. So.
Okay, I was just curious if there's anything we can show in terms of user experience, because you said you have developed this.
Huh?
You said you have developed this by starting with the user experience, and I was curious how this actually works in practice.
Yeah, let me show you. Can I share my screen?
Yeah, you can.
All right, let's try this. Share my screen.
Until you make it work, let me plug the last few ads.
Actually, can you share your screen and go to our Twitter? The pinned tweet shows the exact swap in real time.
I'm not logged into Twitter from this laptop.
Okay, let
So-
me try one more time. It's not allowing me to.
That's weird.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? I think I can.
You don't need to be logged into Twitter to see
Can you see this
the
now?
one tweet.
Can you see that now?
Yes, I do. I see it, but not maybe not on the live stream.
Vlad, can you see it?
Yeah, let me make some adjustments so everyone can see this too.
So
It's on the screen right now.
yeah, it is on the screen right now. But okay, so that is our pinned tweet. Just type in the amount you want to swap.
So this is a swap between which assets?
Bitcoin and Solana. Bitcoin and Ethereum, I mean, we've demonstrated it a million times, actually 13 million times.
So how long does it take to swap between Bitcoin and Solana, and what are the trust assumptions involved?
You're actually seeing a live screen recording. That's it. That's how long it takes. What was it, like 11, 13 seconds? And in terms of trust assumptions, atomic swaps have no trust assumptions other than the primitives that you trust, right, in the blockchain itself. What are the trust assumptions in Lightning? You just trust the security of Bitcoin. You trust the hash time locked contracts. You trust the security of the hash functions, and that's it. Same thing here. If you whatever the alt chain is, Solana, Ethereum, you trust the security of that blockchain. We have no control over that. We are the cross-chain infrastructure layer, right? We're the mesh. We don't make any guarantees about the security of the blockchains themselves, Ethereum or Solana or Bitcoin. But if you do trust them, which is why you're actually doing these transactions, there's nothing else involved. There is no custody. We don't custody anybody's funds. None of the validators custody any user's funds. The key differentiator between us and any other bridge or cross-chain infrastructure projects like Layer 0, Axelar, Thorchain, Wormhole, and whatever you mentioned, one of your sponsors, is that the worst case scenario in those approaches is the validators collude, they take your money, or the custodian just takes your money and runs, and you have permanent loss of your capital. In our case, let's say the validators who are a distributed network of watchtowers, and that's all they are. They only guarantee liveness. They do not guarantee fault tolerance, okay? They do not guarantee anything else because they don't have any custody of your funds. The worst case scenario is your liquidity and your trades are DDoSed for a maximum of 30 days, which is one epoch. After that, because you have the pre-commit of whatever funds you put into the blockchain in your hands before you put it in there, just like Lightning, you broadcast it to the L1, you get your funds back. So the risk of custodial permanent loss is eliminated. The one risk that still remains is that you may have a period of illiquidity, but that's nothing compared to the status quo.
Right. You have another question from the chat from Hardy, who says, "Are we getting V2 swaps next week for real?"
Yes. Well, public testnet V2 swaps by Friday for real, unless we discover some other kink in the system that we need to fix, which we don't think is likely, very unlikely. Yes, Friday next week is the internal deadline.
When do you think that you're going to have these on the mainnet?
Great question. We will be ready for mainnet by the end of this month. So anytime between the end of the month and I can't give you timelines on that, but because there's a lot of extraneous factors that are nothing to do with the tech, but extraneous considerations.
Right, so after you launch on the mainnet, what do the users need to do? Do they go to portaldefi.com or portal to Bitcoin, I think is the URL right now, or do they have to install some sort of application?
Yeah, portaltobitcoin.com and download the Chrome extension, download the iOS app, whatever your platform is, and then just move your money into the wallet and do your swaps, and use the AI agent to actually invest a team of AI agents to trade much better than just being a pleb that loses all of their bags to the sharks.
You might have mentioned this before, but which AI agent are you using, and is it open source?
It'll never be open source. RAFA.ai is the proprietary technology that we acquired and built on top of. It is a system of hierarchical AI agents, many of them built in-house. So when people talk about these models, everybody knows that there are foundational models that are open source and you can put a thin wrapper on it and make it look good for a week on Twitter. We know how the marketing machine works. This is a multi-agent architecture with lots of layers. I'll give you a very brief description of this. There are quant agents, quant models that are proprietary and internally built, never be open source, and will never be exposed to the outside world. Okay. On top of that, we have specialist agents with tools. Like, for example, there's a deep learning model for unstructured data, limit order book analysis. There's a strategy model that is specially built for portfolio construction. You can go to rafa.ai right now and actually look at all the agents and test them all. I don't have to market it. It's its own machine. And so there's all these agents. The LLM, whatever LLM we use, is just the orchestrator of the system. Below that are the tools that the agents use, which guarantee the mathematical accuracy, zero hallucinations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The LLM is just the wrapper. So what we did is the inverse of what everybody else is doing, writing a thin wrapper on top of an LLM. We use the LLM as the thin wrapper on top of everything else below. So it'll never be open source. It's proprietary technology that we took years to build. It'll never be open source. If use it, if you don't like it, don't use it, and don't pay for it. That's it.
Yeah, but the question is, when it's not open source, how do you make sure that it does what is best for the user as opposed to what is best for the builder of the software? Because it's going to be used for finding the best deal when it comes to swaps, right?
Yeah. How is that different than any software that you buy, any SaaS or any other software product or any other app that you buy? Is it doing what is best for you, or is it doing what is best for the software developer? Look, there's this old saying by Paul Graham that users are like sharks, okay? They only have two modes: blood, no blood, which means the product provides value, two, the product doesn't provide value. The proof is in the pudding. The fact that we are the number 5 product hunt on entire financial sector in 2024, and number 2 in 2025 in investing, proves the point that people do find it valuable and continue to pay for it for months and months on end. I don't have to prove to anybody by doing an open source audit of our proprietary stuff. No software company in Silicon Valley does this. That's really, like, I'm not trying to be insulting or abrasive, but the proof is going to be in the pudding. If people find it valuable, they'll use it. If they don't find it valuable, they don't have to pay us. That's all there is to it.
That's fair, but this is Bitcoin, not Silicon Valley.
I don't care. You're using our AI software to trade Bitcoin against anything else. The trust minimized aspect of it is completely separate from the AI agent, which is a service that you pay for. We're not saying that the AI agents are trust minimized. We don't make any stupid claims like that. It is a service that you pay for. If you get value out of it, you pay for it. If you don't get value out of it, you don't pay for it. There are two components. It's a completely Web 2 product, okay, that helps you utilize our trust minimized software to the best of your abilities. We're not saying, we're not making any stupid claims like BitTensor or anything else where they're saying, oh, open source AI agents, blah, 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 so buy my token. We're not doing that. So we don't have to prove anything to anyone. All we have to prove is that if it is useful to you, you'll pay for it. If it is not useful to you, you don't pay for it. End of story.
Portal Wallet is open source.
Yeah, the wallet.
RAFA.ai is not a wallet. It doesn't hold money.
Yeah, it does not hold money. It is a co-pilot. If you're paying money to ChatGPT, you're doing so because it is useful. If you're paying money to Gemini, you're paying money because it's useful. In the financial space, we have the best co-pilot. If you find it useful, pay money. If you don't. I don't really care about what Bitcoiners think about this. Users are users. If they find it useful, they'll pay. If they don't find it useful, we failed.
That's fair, but at the same time, you have to take into account that this is about swaps. And when you do swaps, you want to get the best deal for yourself. And there's the risk that the AI will find the best deal for the service provider as opposed to the user.
Okay, so but we're not living isolated in our own ecosystem, right? Like when it tells you to do this swap against that swap, people know what the prices are on centralized exchanges in real time. We actually provide that directly right there. People know what the fees are on other centralized centralized alternatives. And so they can make their own decisions. We're transparent about that. This is a real market, man. We're not trying to actually steal people's funds by actually, making the AI give you terrible advice. Because think about this way. If the investment co-pilot continues to give you terrible advice, do you think we'll survive long-term as a company that makes profits?
Oh, I don't know about that because, for example, on Uniswap, sometimes you have terrible rates. On MetaMask, it suggests you to send transactions at very high fees instead of telling you, well, you should wait just a few more minutes because there's this number of transactions that will clear. I mean, there are a lot of bad decisions that people make with user experience in this space. Also, Bitcoin wallets on mobile. There are people who just pay the next block fee without thinking that if they broadcast a slightly smaller fee or even half of that fee, they can just wait 10 more minutes.
We don't actually optimize for any of that stuff. What we optimize for is the technicals and the fundamentals. The agents actually tell you what your portfolio is, how they're doing, okay, how each one of your tokens on the portfolio are doing, and what will give you the highest probability of success based on the best analysis possible, which you can't do in your head. That's all it is. You can take that information and go trade on Binance if you want. It doesn't direct transactions to our DEX. So maybe that's the disconnect you're having.
No, it's fine. I'm just trying to ask a question from the perspective of a user. Like, I'm going to be paying for that AI, and I want to understand exactly what are the incentives and whether or not I can audit the code behind it to be sure it does what is best for myself.
Yeah, the incentives are if our customers don't get value, we don't get paid. That's it.
There's a question from Onyx who says, will Portal to Bitcoin do another funding round before TG and Mainnet?
We don't have any plans to, and we don't have any need to. So, but tomorrow, if Mark Andreessen descends upon us and gives us a couple of $100 million, we'll take it. Just a joke.
Pharmacist is saying, why is Portal taking much more time?
Yeah, because we're building shit that nobody's ever attempted to build or dared to build, and we've actually built it. So it takes time, man.
Fair. So
Well,
you said that by
I
the
mean,
end of the month.
we're the ones with the machetes who are trailblazing into the forest.
That's right. That's why he's wearing the hat, by the way.
You said that by the end of the month you're gonna have the product on mainnet, hopefully.
We'll be ready to have it on the mainnet. When it actually gets deployed on the mainnet, like I said, has a lot more considerations than just the technical audits being completed and all of that stuff. And I can't, for good reasons, not go into all of what those extraneous considerations are. But it will be ready technically. If Bitcoin drops to 20, timing changes, right? So there's extraneous considerations.
The swaps that will be available will be between Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Is there anything else involved? Do you do USDT or something?
100% USDT. See, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and all of the ERC20s and SPLs that are on those chains. So when we say we support a network like SUI, all SUI-based tokens will also be supported. So it's not just the base currencies, it's all of the tokens that are issued on those.
Do you believe you're competing with swapping services or centralized exchanges, or what is the end game for Portal?
Yes, all of them. We want to eat all of them.
Then why do you think businesses like Coinbase are financing your project? Is it because they're afraid of the competition and they want to control it? Or is it because...
They have no control over us. This is publicly broadcast. I know Coinbase Ventures is listed. They have no control over us. We told them right off the bat, if we succeed, your business is going to go to shit. And we were very transparent with all of the exchanges, other exchanges that invested as well, OKX as well. And you can't stop us. Money is a commodity. If it's not your money, if it's somebody else's money, okay? So you might as well get a piece of the action with the thinking that if we do succeed, they're benefiting. If we don't, they write it off, just like any other venture fund. But if not us, somebody else will solve this problem. You can't stop this. Technology doesn't stop for anybody else, no matter how much they try.
At the same time, there are some use cases which I don't think Portal can be able to incorporate. For example, buying Bitcoin with your credit card or DCAing with it, or custodying for ETFs.
Yeah, you can. So trust minimization stops at the end of the blockchain boundary. You can have fiat on-ramps through MoonPay and stuff like that, which we're incorporating, but we're not claiming that it's trustless. You're actually trusting somebody else, the credit card company. Like, that's a different world. We don't make any security guarantees about that. That's up to you. You can with PortalDex.
DCAing is possible through that partner. DCAing is also possible from other stable coins into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Through the Portal DEX.
For example, you can go to Coinbase, buy USDC, and then do everything else on Portal, right? So.
Yeah, but you're not really replacing Coinbase if users are still going to be buying with their credit cards on Coinbase.
We never made the claim that we're going to replace the fiat bridge, because fiat system is completely centralized. And anybody who makes the claim that their trust minimized fiat bridge is lying to you. We never made that claim.
No, of course not. But you said that their business is going to go to zero or something, which will not happen because there is no way you can replace every other use case from which they're making money. Maybe you can make them smaller, but
maybe they'll just serve as a fiat on-ramp to the DEXs. That's still a good business. And then maybe their custodial. See, I was specifically talking about, let me clarify, their exchange business. They still have other lines of business, right? Like their fiat bridge, fiat on-ramp, off-ramp. There's still I'm talking generally, not about centralized exchanges. They still have a custodial service, qualified custodial service for digital assets. That's a revenue producer. So they've diversified enough. I mean, I'm not worried about them. Neither should you be.
I got another question from Hardy, who says, just the last question by me. don't you think if Portal DEX will launch, all other DEXs are gonna be trash? We all getting everything at one place. Isn't competitors creating trouble for Portal to list themselves on other sexes? CEXs, I think, is a better way to ask. Thank you for asking this question. So there are two sides of it. If the other decentralized exchanges are going to be trash in comparison to Portal when Portal will launch, and are we getting everything in one place? Isn't competitors creating trouble for Portal to list themselves on other sexes?
Let me address that.
I don't know what he means by creating trouble.
I'm also trying to figure out.
Yeah, trouble is like you compete in the market, you do what you can with your strategy to compete against us, and we do what we can to crush you, and that's how markets work. I mean, what more can I say? We built a superior product, and if we are good at distribution and marketing and actually delivering on the promise, they will be trash. That is our stated goal. It's not like we're hiding it from anybody else. That is our stated goal. That is our mission, to conquer this space. So yeah, they can try to create trouble. I mean, hopefully they won't try to kidnap anyone in our company and do all sorts of shady shit. If they do, there's nobody we can't reach out and touch. Trust us on that.
Okay. I don't know how to respond to that, especially the last part.
This is just to his specific question, which is very unlikely. They can create trouble by creating a superior product, which is how competition works, right? That's okay. They can create better product. They can compete with us on different dimensions, better distribution, all of that stuff. There's nothing we can do about that except being better.
I know that you guys have quite a lot of users on Discord who have been testing the product for many years.
Yes.
And I was curious if the users have stirred the development in any way, or you stuck to your roadmap.
Can you say that last statement again?
So I was curious if the feedback from the users has delayed development in any way because they discovered something that was important, or it was just following the roadmap all along.
It has helped us tremendously. It has also delayed the launch of the product by a lot, but that's how you actually iterate and fix. We are fortunate enough to have a lot of users that are heavily invested in testing the product to the max and making sure that we solve, like when we ran our testnet V1, we solved almost like 700-800 tickets in the span of 6 weeks. That was only possible because of the crowdsourcing of the testing to our heavily engaged user base, for which we are eternally thankful. Okay, so of course, yes, they made the product 1,000 times better. That also takes time, obviously.
I remember a few years ago that the conversation was also about building an operating system for Bitcoin. Is that still part of your design?
That word is actually, well, what does an operating system mean? We kind of moved away from that because there's a lot of terrible marketing noise in this space about Bitcoin OS and this and that and all the other stuff. And so we moved away from that. The question is, what is the need for an operating system on Bitcoin? We're solving a specific use case, right? We're solving trust minimized cross-chain transactions, whether they're swaps, perps, stables, options, whatever it is, right? When you say operating system, are you talking about like a personal financial computer? Like, I don't even know what that means. So, that was Eric's vision, to build an operating system on Bitcoin. I'm still not sure what that actually means, so I can't comment on that.
That's fair. I'm taking a look right now on the partners on your website, and these are going to be integrating Portal infrastructure. I noticed that you're going to be working with BRC20s and Stacks, which is formerly Blockstack.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so when we started last year, the biggest demand for integrating trustless swaps was from these wrapped coins on sidechains. Like Stacks is a sidechain, right? They have SBTC. So you send BTC into a multi-sig wallet, they issue SBTC, hopefully pegged one-to-one. All we said to all of these L2s that were coming out last year was, look, if you integrate Portal using our swap SDK, or actually the liquidity router, it's a separate product for SDK integration. Your users will be able to trustlessly or trust minimized atomic swap SBTC right back into BTC. It's an exit pathway with no risk. Because the problem with all of these wrapped derivatives is when the peg breaks. And the question is not if the peg breaks, it is when the peg breaks. Okay? So no derivative should be priced at par with the underlying asset. If there is even a tiny non-zero risk that the peg will break. Does that make sense to you?
So you're not creating a market between SBTC and natural BTC.
Right. So what we're allowing people to do is actually discover the price between how these wrapped BTCs should trade against native Bitcoin. And we're not pricing it, the market will price it.
Right now, I was thinking about how this is going to work in practice, because you want to turn Bitcoin into a settlement layer for a wide array of financial operations. So you're going to have data about these operations being added into the Bitcoin blockchain, is that correct?
No, all we're saying is that eventually, when let's take Stacks for example, right? Like let's say Stacks conquers the DeFi space on the L2. Let's say it becomes the dominant L2 where all the DeFi things that can happen on Ethereum can happen on Stacks, right? You can trustlessly then swap STX into Bitcoin, right? Or SBTC back into Bitcoin, because eventually it's the most, not eventually, but for the foreseeable future and now, it is the most secure, globally seamless settlement system ever devised. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. That's what we mean by making it a settlement layer for millions of markets. It's not about taking the data and putting it on the blockchain and basically spamming the Bitcoin block space. The transactions will all be compressed into whatever they can be compressed into. And therefore, the miner revenue should actually increase, which, like I said, will secure Bitcoin, make Bitcoin more and more secure.
Right now, I'm looking at your website. You have this very nice network architecture diagram that shows interaction between the BTC chain, the Ethereum chain, and there's also ports in the middle, which I'm not sure if it's supposed to be your service or it's also a token of sorts that participates in this economic exchange.
Portal is an app chain, which is a network of validators that serve as a distributed network of watchtowers. So if you're familiar with the watchtower functionality on Lightning, that exists because you don't actually think that the clients are going to be live at all times and someone doesn't broadcast a previous state that was invalid and then try to steal your coins. That's why watchtowers exist. It's the same. It's essentially the same function. So that's the Portal network. It's an app chain. It doesn't hold custody of anyone's coins. It only guarantees liveness of the functionality of these cross-chain transactions, not the trust assumption. It is not about the fault tolerance, only the liveness.
So my follow-up question is, where's the data about these swaps being stored? Is it on the Bitcoin chain, on Ethereum, or the watchtowers?
It's going to be stored on the Portal chain. That's why it's called the notary chain for that reason, because we don't want to clog the Bitcoin block space with all of these swaps data. Do we need to store it? For several reasons, including legal, yes, I believe that the design is appropriate. And so therefore it was built to store that data outside of the Bitcoin blockchain. But once the settlement is done, You only need it for audit purposes. That's why it's called a notary chain. You don't need it for settlement. Once your swaps are done, your settlement happened on the Bitcoin blockchain. You're done. This is just a record of what swaps happen between whom.
Okay, so Portal is running a basically independent chain that
It's an app. Yes. It's specifically built for an application purpose. It's not another L1 or anything like that. The world doesn't need another L1, for God's sake.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it's an interesting design. I can see why you took shots at TorChain, which, by the way, is not my sponsor, and it's not related to SideShift.
Otherwise, you would have had to cut this interview short.
No, criticism is fine. Competition is also good.
Yeah, appreciate that. We agree.
There's no reason for me to make radical decisions because we disagree about something. There is a question from Moonlight on the chat. He says, how can we trust on protection of funds from quantum attacks? What proof is Portal gonna give that they are truly secured with from quantum attacks? I guess he meant.
Not right now, nothing, because Bitcoin is not quantum secure. When op hash signatures opcode gets actually implemented, right? Then we are ready for it on day one. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, it's a good question and also a pretty good answer. We do need some sort of quantum security in Bitcoin, even, as you said, even if the thread is small.
It's small, but it's not zero. So, as a wallet, we have the unique privilege of actually enabling the op hash signatures on day one. So whenever Bitcoin, as long as the underlying chains are not, we can't claim that we are.
I don't think I have any more questions about Portal at this time. I'm very excited to try the product when it comes out.
We'd love to have you as a beta tester, and if you like it, tell your audience about it if you want to.
But I do have a question which sort of comes from Bitcoin.com, which right now they rebranded their BTC-only website, but they still support Roger Ver's cause. And I was wondering what you guys think, since I think Roger was one of the first participants to the Silicon Valley Meetup.
He created the Meetup, that's right, along with Andreas Antonopoulos. And he still owns the Meetup, but from afar. And I hope he's not still owning it from the inside of a jail cell. I hope that goes away.
I don't have any comments on that. I don't know what Roger Ver's cause is, so I can't comment on that. But if you're talking about what happened to him legally,
BCH.
Yeah, I mean,
is that the cause you're referring to, Vlad?
No, I mean this whole situation with the IRS, because right now there is a petition going on and he's trying to get clemency, I guess, from the Trump administration. That sort of sucks because according to his claims, there is no price that he can pay for his freedom. Like the IRS did not ask for an amount. They're just trying to put him in jail.
I mean, I think he is well-intentioned. I think he tried to solve the problem of the block space debate in his own way with Bitcoin Cash. We may have disagreements there. I do believe that he was well-intentioned. I don't know the details about his case or what he did or how they actually got him or what they charged him with. So, and I'm not a lawyer. So I can't comment on that. I wish him well, like I wish everybody well. But beyond that, I don't know much.
Yeah. Anyway, for those of you who are not familiar with it, you can check out the documents which have been publicized on, I think it's freerogernow.org, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but also Bitcoin.com has had a major rebrand, so if you check it out now, it's very different from what you remember. Especially the news section.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We'll check it out. Like I said, I hope it ends well for everyone,
Yeah, I don't want to see innovators like Roger, who Bitcoin owes a debt of gratitude to for what he did in the beginning, to be suffering like this. But also, I'm not in in his wallet, and I don't know what he did or didn't do.
Right.
So
The problem with questions like, I mean, I'm not saying I'm critiquing you for asking the question or your audience, but the
Yeah.
issues with the problems with issues like these is these are deep dives one needs to have a strong opinion on, and I don't know anything at all about what he did, what he didn't do. Did he violate the law? Did they actually try to make him a scapegoat? You know, what they charged him with, what the laws are. I have no idea.
I think I've mostly asked the question for George because I know that he attends the meetup in Silicon Valley, which
Yeah, the meetup has been on hiatus for quite some time. I've spent a lot of time away from Silicon Valley, and I live in Puerto Rico now. And I actually do want someone to take over the Silicon Valley Bitcoin meetup. It's the first ever meetup about Bitcoin. And the greats in Silicon Valley, who turned Bitcoin into what it is today. Maybe not today, because the people like Michael Saylor are what are driving that type of Bitcoin adoption today. But in the early days, man, that was very much centered around San Francisco and the Bay Area. And yeah, well, hopefully someone good will be able to take that on.
yeah. Anyway, I gotta give thank you to noance.com for also sponsoring. They're this peer-to-peer exchange that's trying to bring empowerment to the global south. And also hodling.ch, a Swiss service that's trying to provide assistance to those who need help with their self-custody, especially companies if they want to do multi-sigs for buying Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So check them out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Very important.
it's, I guess, the newest trend right now with companies buying Bitcoin. Are you guys identifying with this new crowd of people who only care about who's buying Bitcoin and how much they own?
Not sure. Are you talking about MicroStrategy imitators or?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
It'll reduce the supply. Fine by me.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting strategy in the sense that Michael Saylor is probably the greatest second or third greatest salesman that, or maybe sixth or seventh in the world. But he's able to sell his convertible debt and actually able to market his common stock that holds no rights and no value to a lot of people and produce returns. So kudos for that. It's like, I don't have any grudge. I don't, if it works for them, good for them. Obviously there's competition because it is working for him. And we recently found out that David Bailey is doing the same thing. And there was another one called DeFi Development Corp that a friend helped bring to fruition for accumulating Solana and so on and so forth. So the market seems to like it. So yeah, that's my observation. I don't have any strong feelings about that.
It's just about the narrative of never selling your Bitcoin, never using it for anything else other than speculation. I think it's detrimental to the entire space, and a lot of builders are suffering from it.
And you're saying that, Vlad, because the name of Satoshi's white paper is a peer-to-peer cash system?
I'm not going to go into that. People will think I'm a big blocker. But my point is that most of us got into Bitcoin because we saw this as a better form of money. And now we're being told, well, it's not supposed to be used as money. Just hoard it, get as much as you can, and just sit on your stack.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. People who make those stupid claims really don't understand the Bitcoin network architecture. If nobody transacts on Bitcoin, the miner revenue goes to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And then what secures the network after the block subsidy expires? I don't think, which is what my problem with these hangers on, these fleas on the body of Bitcoin, is that they're primarily marketers clinging on to a trend. Okay. And you can't expect them to really understand the game theory and the mechanics and the design and the beauty of Bitcoin. So, like, they can have their stupid opinions. We don't care. We don't have time to go through everyone and refute everybody else. I'm with you on that. Bitcoin as a currency, if it is not transacted and used, and holding it is not used in the strict sense of the term, That is not what it was built for. It was built, I'm with you on that. It was built to separate money from the state. End of story.
Do you still believe we're going to accomplish this, or are we just gonna get USD rich?
I'll take USD rich. Don't get me wrong. I want to get USD rich. Who does?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a bit confused about what I see around myself, and when I check Twitter, I don't feel like I'm part of this movement anymore because I have different ideas.
Well, you feel like, and also like
Yeah.
me, like we still believe in the original ethos, and it's like look, the world is always going to be noisy, my friend. I mean, you're never going to have purity.
Yeah.
And purity spirals don't help you psychologically or mentally or physically. So like forget about all of the noise, stick to what you believe in, and do your thing like you're doing right now. It's like, what else is there? Why do you need to care about all of these useless people with stupid opinions? Why?
No.
You got
Vlad, USD on chain was such a novel concept to me. Being in Bitcoin since 2013, building a Bitcoin debit card in the US where people would spend their coins converted into USD at the point of swipe. The concept of USD on chain was really foreign to me. And even the Tether founders had pitched me on investing. I was like, "Well, I don't get the concept. You're telling me this US dollar coin is meant to do what?" He's like, "Well, it never goes down." And I'm like,
a valuable service because people want to have this friction-free
yeah,
transactions into something that is stable and is money today, which is US dollar, in times of volatility. And so it does
right.
provide a valuable service. So that's great. We don't have
That's right.
anything.
And times have changed, right? The market has proven what it wants.
Yeah,
That's what I'm getting at.
for building a product that the market wants. All the entrepreneurs that build products that the market wants and desires, and they succeed, they'll always have my respect.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. You told me you only have 1 hour. I've held you for 1 hour and a half.
Oh boy.
If there's
Now-
anything
Well,
that I
Boys,
didn't
for-
ask you about but you really wanted to mention, this is your chance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our
yeah, I
place.
got something.
Okay, so go to portaltobitcoin.com or twitter.com/ or x.com/portal to Bitcoin and join our Discord community, and then you'll be amazed at how many wonderful people there are who actually believe in what we just spoke about. So you'll be part of a wonderful community, and we're gonna shake up this space, or die trying.
Sounds good
And
to me.
I'll end this with why we built what we built. The crypto ecosystem, the community has a short memory. And because I've been in the space since 2013, I've seen exchanges hacked year after year after year. And the, the security often gets better, but the hacks get larger, right? We recently saw a 10-figure hack, the first ever. And that will continue to happen, and it will get larger. Thank God the industry did not die as a result of it. And thank God that the company that it happened to was able to cover those losses. But that won't always be the case. So what we built is meant to prevent rugging. It's meant so people can take what is the weakest link in crypto, which is exchange between chains, and make it as safe as possible. So that way that can now be a reliable method of interoperability.
Sounds good. And also, will you guys be attending any conferences over the next few months?
We try not to. Sometimes we are forced to, but our focus is getting to mainnet ASAP, getting the mainnet ready, getting as many users to adopt the self-custodial solution and the AI-enabled better trading solution, RAFA, as possible. I'm sure someone from our biz dev team will attend, but yeah, I mean, I personally am not a big fan of wasting time at conferences unless it's like you go somewhere, you set up all of your. I shouldn't give out the secret sauce, but probably everybody knows this by now. Set up all of your meetings close to the venue and just get out of there. I don't like to waste time at conferences generally.
Yeah, pro tip, just spend your time in the hallway and talk with people. It's more productive.
Yeah.
You can watch the presentations on YouTube when you get home.
100%. That's actually my strategy. But being in the hallway, but also the problem with conferences is everyone meets 500 people at a conference. So your mental bandwidth of memory, how many people you remember, how many you can actually follow up with and get a follow back. It's not the most efficient use of time, in my opinion. But hey, good for those who attend and get value out of those.
Thank you very much, Chandra and George. I wish you best of luck with the launch of
Thank you, Vlad.
Portal to Bitcoin and its latest iteration, which sounds very promising, and you made some bold claims right there. I look forward to seeing the users migrate from centralized exchanges to Portal. And thanks to the sponsors. Once again, nuance.com, hodling.ch, Sideshift.ai, Citrea.xyz, Bitcoin.com News, and Layer2Labs.com. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.